This is Scott, and I am with Scott with 309, and I am joined by my good friend Ian Hamilton. Ian was a student at UWF when I first met him, and although I probably met you during the scene at different times or at shows or behind the counter somewhere. But we got to talk a lot more at UWF when Ian was working on this project to create this film called Pensacola Punks. And in the process, he was able to do tons and tons of interviews. So I wanted to talk to him about the film he made, talk about the research that he did, and then talk about punk in general too. So Ian, thank you so much for joining us here today.
I'm glad to be here. I'm always looking for an opportunity to talk about the movie and the greater scene in general, especially what you guys are doing with it.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you in advance too for all the support, just in case I forget. Too. Ian's also been a super supporter of us over the years. And yeah, we just cannot thank him enough. So Ian, how did you get into punk?
My sister, actually, I was just having this conversation the other day, my sister was one of the first to like, hey, here's a band called NoFX, check them out. And then that, like, I think it was actually on a Punkorama CD back when they had the $5 compilations.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well now this is just a checklist of every band. And that was like 7th or 8th grade. And then it just kind of grew from there. And I kind of liked the no frillsness of it, how stripped down it was compared to a lot of things. I didn't have a very good, I still don't have a very good attention span. So having a good 2-minute song was very appealing. Like, just get the message out there and we'll be done. But then after that, it was just, I just like the inclusiveness of it, the feeling of doing it yourself and all of that kind of kept me with it.
So how do you see your love of history intersecting with punk?
Basically, I'm the intersection. So when I first decided to go back to school, I was trying to figure out a topic that I thought was important, which was history. And then with my personal background with punk, it was very easy to like, well, write what you know and do what you know. So I was able to really tie that in. But then just seeing that when a lot of the punk documentaries and books and things that I've read or seen, they always focus on a very major scene, whether it's LA, New York, major cities like that, or if it's about a very specific band, it's always like a bigger name band or at least more common. And I always felt like Pensacola was very unique from the places that I went to. And so, again, write what you know. So I wrote about the scene that I enjoyed so much. Finding like these underrepresented groups was always like an appeal to me for the history aspect, making sure that everyone's story at this point can be recorded, especially with the technology we have. And that also my focus was always on that and on media. So finding out how culture and media is shaped through history and by history. And so making a documentary was just like kind of a logical next step for doing something that for documenting a history that I thought was important enough to document.
Well, looking at the work that you did in creating this documentary, it was incredibly helpful for us at 309 because not only did you ultimately, I think you said that you created the commercial. No, it wasn't you. It was your partner.
My wife mentioned that, like, she just kind of turned to me, was like, you just made a commercial for them. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
I think it was a bit of a surprise to all of us too.
Yeah, when I was doing the interviews, I had no idea what the story was at the point. Like, of course, you could tie it around a specific era. You could tie it around like a specific location, but with the interviews that I was able to get in this 5-month span, I had to like kind of struggle to find the story and you all starting the project. And it was just kind of getting its like legs underneath it. It seemed like a great way and it tied in with history. So it was just documenting the rise of a history museum within the town. So it kind of coincided perfectly for you and for me.
Yeah, actually, it did. Yeah, because not only with you being able to be able to give or to work really well with your project, as a historian, as a graduate student, but then with us too, because then all of a sudden people started taking us a lot more seriously with what
Yeah,
we were doing. In particular, the folks over at the TT Wentworth Museum, formerly known as TT
yeah,
Wentworth. And when they did, then that helped get us into the Pensacola and helped us basically take it over, take over the exhibit. They gave it to us. I was saying take it over, but they
yeah.
gave it to us.
He it was name was it was Barrett, right? Was the
Lowell?
Lowell, yeah, Lowell Barrett. Yeah, he came to me when he found out about the project and really wanted to do the idea. And I was very happy to just pass him along to you guys because I was about to move to Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
And as much as I would love to have taken part in that, like I needed to kind of focus on the next life step for me, and making trying to do something that is still relatively new from afar just seemed kind of daunting. So I was like, I know it'll be in good hands with you all.
Yeah, well, what he did was he brought us into the project. Lowell, it brought us into the project, and then at some point he realized that maybe it'd be better if, and this, I love this approach that he did with us too, is that he brought us into the project, and then basically just facilitated us doing what we were going to do.
Yeah.
I think from my understanding that they wanted to do it first and we were going to assist them. And then eventually they said, maybe you should do it and then we'll assist you. And then they stepped back, but it wouldn't happen without you and without the work that you did. So the film was important for both of us, really. In that way.
Yeah, and there's like one or two articles that I was able to do with like the News Journal or something with Troy.
Mhm.
And it was always nice because there was the project that I was doing, and it's like, okay, there's that, but then being able to tie it to your group and being like, well, okay, so this is a kind of a one-time film for now, so but here is this other group that's going to be working for the long haul, and like to help publicize that. And it really just worked like interchangeably, trying to like you guys promoting the film, helping to promote the film and spread the word, and then me helping to promote you guys by showing the film when I could.
Yeah. Well, so what was the reaction within the history department when you wanted to do this on punk?
So it was in a weird, I kind of lucked out. It was in a weird moment within the department because I was part of the master's public history program. And it's a 2-year program. And halfway through my 2 years, Dr. Patrick Moore, who was the head of the public history department, left after 20 something years.
Oh, I should say, I
So,
think that you're crackling up a little bit. I'm not sure.
oh, am I? Let me just adjust and see. How about that?
Okay, there you go.
Better? Okay. Dr. Patrick Moore left after halfway through my 2-year program, and he was the head for like 20 years of the public history department. And so everyone was kind of scrambling. They weren't sure what to do with all the public history students. So I kind of like slipped in this area of being able to like really put forth this like kind of big ambitious project that no one had done as far as I know. And no one brought it up like, oh, someone did this once before or anything. It was the first time someone had worked on a documentary, because on the website, there was always a specialization for film and media. And since that was always my focus, I always kept pushing for that.
I think you're still crackling it up a little bit in there.
You buy these expensive headphones and then they don't want to work.
Oh, now I have.
Okay, we're gonna try one and see how that goes.
Okay, we'll go.
All right. They had this specialization for film and media. No one had touched it in like 10 or 15 years. I kept bringing it up to Dr. Moore, and he was like, yeah, we'll see what we can do. He left. And so they kind of scrambled, and I was a good enough student, and the teachers knew that I worked hard. So they were just like, all right, just do this for like, what do they call it? Like advisor or faculty advised project or something like that. It's not an official class, but you can earn the credits if you do the work, kind of thing. And so they were just like, yeah, do this, show you did the work, and we'll get you graduated. And I don't know. And just before that, I went to the National Council of Public History conference for the first time, and had met with a guy who had done a couple of years of something called the Visual History Summer Institute. And he was specifically training historians how to do documentaries, the kind of basic camera work, lighting, stuff like that, but then just also, the basics of how to build a documentary. So I had just done that. I had just learned the skills. There was this new opening. No one was really watching what everyone was doing. So I just kind of lucked out in this like really cool window to really experiment and like try some new things. And they were all for it. Like we did a special screening for the faculty and some of the people involved, like a kind of soft opening, and everyone really enjoyed it. I don't think there were too many complaints, and I got the credits and I got the degree, so
So it worked.
It was good enough.
All right. Well, let me show a little clip from this. This is the trailer. Let me do the screen share, see if I can get it right. So if I do it, I have a 50-50 record with this. Can you see it okay?
I can, yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so here we go.
What, do I consider myself punk? I mean,
Hold on, let me go back and we can hear that beginning.
Okay.
what, do I consider myself punk? I mean,
I hate that word so much. You know, I don't know, you know.
I mean, I guess.
Depends on who's asking.
Oh, that was so
Yeah, I
great.
enjoyed putting that together when like it was one of those things that, so I went through so much footage trying to like find the right sound bites and everything. And there's you.
Oh, there I am. Hold on. I think you see enough of me, and then you get to see how my
Yeah.
how COVID has
Yeah,
lightened my beard
same.
a little bit.
Yeah, it was fun trying to go through that footage, and it very quickly I realized that I had some gold with how people really reacted to the question, do you consider yourself punk? And how most of the answers are like, and that's still how I feel. Like, I guess I can say yes, but there's just still part of it that's like, it sounds silly to say. And I think I knew that asking the question, like, it's a really broad, open question, but it's just fun to see how people react to it.
It was cool. Yeah, I like when you see it in the movie itself, Emerge at Night. Do you consider yourself punk? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the best part, is adding in the actual answers, and like they made me think about it, but then it's like, yeah, I think so. And I think Shane had one of the best words. Do I consider myself a punk? Yeah, I'm a fucking punk.
I thought it was really well crafted, and what I like even with that question too is just this constant search for what is punk or not. I was in an interview today, and that was a really big part of this. Like, what is punk? It's like, I don't know, and just that difficulty for us to define, not only define what's punk, but then do you want to be known as this, or do you own the title? And it took me a while to be like, yeah, sure, but it's like, yeah, of course, but I know it's hard for people to just to say like, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think there's like an undercurrent that's always been present there of because it's so kind of anti-establishment, like putting a label on it like automatically makes it feel lame, but like, oh well, get over it. I mean, we need labels. We need labels so we don't confuse a banana and an apple. So sometimes we need to call ourselves a punk.
Yeah. So otherwise, we might be an apple, right?
I don't want to be confused with a DJ. So
DJs are cool. I love DJs.
Yeah.
All right. So what were some of the most memorable interviews that you did in the throughout the whole process? Because what you did, well, actually maybe two parts. One, if you had, how many hours of interviews and how many hours of archival stuff do you have in this?
So there are about 24 or so, give or take a couple, actual interviews. There are probably around 33 to 35 people involved, because some of them are groups. The band Sour was together. Cookies and Cake were a pair. uh, who's the other one? Dicks from Mars was a group, and a couple others were in pairs. So there were more people. And then there's about 30 to 40 hours of actual interview. The shortest one was like 25 minutes maybe, and then the longest one was about 3 hours. But on average, they lasted about an hour or so.
A 3 hour one was me, and I was just mumbling, the whole time.
No, it wasn't actually. I
You had to
mean,
redo it.
technically,
I'm sure.
yeah. Oh, I remember there was two with you, and that probably would have equaled the longest one. But no, there was one that was like 3 hours straight. Yeah. And yeah, and so then I also collected and digitized a bunch of zines, photos that people let me borrow and or gave me. I collected a bunch of music from the different decades and put that into the archive. And I think that's it. But right now I don't have hard numbers.
Okay.
I need to go through and like reorganize before I give it to you.
Well,
Or make sure there's no bad edits in there that I need to like leave in. But one of the things I learned from doing this project was shooting on a DSLR, which is like just your basic photo camera. You can shoot video on them and usually pretty well, but they only have like a 24-minute limit.
Oh.
So with every interview that went over 24 minutes, I had to like stop them for a second, hit the button, stop it, start recording again. And then later I had to piece all those like pieces. So like with the really long ones, I'm adding six chunks together to make one full interview.
Well, it's, I mean, certainly it was a process that you had to learn as you were going along.
Yeah, I went through those interviews so many times. I still have the notes of like going through each one, and I asked roughly the same questions for each person or each interview, and then it would veer depending on the topic and everything. But I wanted to make sure I had these like set questions that were asked to everyone. And so I was like going through every interview and then like having to timestamp like by hand when that question was asked and when they answered it, because they were all asked at different times depending on the conversation I was having.
Okay. Oh, so why'd you have to do that?
Oh, just so I knew where the questions were. So like when trying to group, when I was trying to figure out the story, what I was doing was I was grouping all of the answers for a particular question. So like so do you consider yourself punk? And like going through every interview, finding out the time that I asked that question. And then that way I can like quickly reference it and grab it if I choose to use that one. But I had to do that for all 20 something interviews. And for the longer ones, there were some interesting things that I just had to like listen to over and over again because I would miss something. Or I'd get caught up in like actually re-listening to the interview again.
All right, well, it's a pro tip from the documentarian.
Yeah, I'll probably digitize the notes that I took, and you'll see how crazy I was starting to feel towards the end of it all. Like, because the whole thing was like most documentaries happen over a few years, depending on the type of subject. This was all done in like 5 months in one semester. So I started off with an idea and knowing how to go about recording interviews, but actually putting everything together, I was learning on the fly. And a lot of the people I talked to, I had like maybe half of them I had never met before. So like having to build up this type of relationship. And Kent is someone who I knew, but like I only ever really got to know him until like his interview, and then talking about it since then, like after.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back and
yeah.
Well, so what were some of the most memorable interviews that you did?
Kent's was definitely memorable, getting to know him. The other one, the longest one, was like 3 something hours, and that was with I'm really bad at these names now. It's actually one that didn't make it into the film because only maybe half of the interviews I did made it into the 25-minute film, just for time's sake and sanity's sake. So that was with Chris and Colton Wright.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, I'm blanking on his last name all of a sudden.
Chris Wilkes.
Yeah, Wilkes. Yeah. Theirs was really long, but they had so many stories to tell about them doing like having shows at Colton's mom's house, and like they were housing the band Avail like there anytime they came through town, and like them starting up Section 8 and all the other little venues that they did. And like they both had almost an encyclopedic knowledge of like all the little shows that were going, not little, but like in little spaces during like the mid 90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
So they were really interesting. Honestly, seeing the Dicks from Mars and Sour, which were they were still just about to graduate high school or just graduated high school. So seeing like them and how much smarter they were than me at the same age. It's like, oh, you guys seem to understand how the world works better than I did. And then and honestly seeing some of the views of some of the older people and how they kind of view punk now was kind of an interesting shift for some of them, and some kind of still held on to the ideals. Some ideals shifted, and it was interesting to see how some of those did. Earl's interview was interesting, but mainly because of how short it was. That was one I expected. It was actually my second interview out of all of them. So I was still like getting my rhythm, but I think he was nervous either being in front of the camera, but also it was right around one of the anniversaries of Big Dave passing. So that could have been affecting it, but it was a shorter interview than I expected.
Or Big Mike.
Oh, Big Mike. Yeah. So seeing realizing how short that interview ended and wanting to go back, but then just not having time was interesting.
I don't know if I told you, but Earl was my very first interview that I did with anybody.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't much different than that, because me and him have talked and hung out plenty of times. Like it wasn't a nervousness of seeing each other, but like I think it was second interview of the day, because my first was with Troy and Eric, and then I basically went straight to go interview Earl. And so I was still kind of frazzled on how the whole process worked, and I probably did not put forth a calm and in charge manner as I probably should have.
Well, I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize is when you're interviewing people that there's a good chance that you're going to be nervous also when you're doing the interview, no matter who it is, trying to set it up and trying to think of the questions ahead of time and staying on.
Yeah. And paying attention, planning ahead, trying to, ask the follow-up questions. And one thing I also found was making sure you're talking as little as possible as the interviewee or as the interviewer, because nothing's worse than going back through all that footage and hearing you like kind of mumble through a question. And it's like, okay, they heard me. I know I'm not mic'd, but it's just, it doesn't do anything for your self-esteem.
No, that's for sure. I think it's just about every interview I have. It's like, shut up. It's like, you're not the one who people are here to see.
Yes.
Right. So what was the most meaningful aspect of this project? And you can think of it during or afterwards or to you now.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not by any means a perfect project. I mean, I don't think any project really is, especially one where you kind of are forced to have a short deadline. Like there are easily 50 other interviews that I had names for that either just didn't work out geographically or schedule wise, just made it very difficult. But I think just seeing the people come together, because I was posting in a Facebook group, like the Pensacola Punk History Facebook group, seeing the amount of people who are like sharing pictures and sharing zines, and it just took like this small, what seemed like a small idea of wanting to do a documentary, and it kind of got people excited again, and it seemed like there was this spike of people talking about like old shows and everything, and it's possible I just wasn't seeing it, but when I was looking for interviewees or people who had materials, people were coming out of the woodwork to share what they were able to share in, and that was always really cool to see.
Yeah, I know that when we first started this project, that it's kind of the same thing too, that all of a sudden these people who lived at 309 that I didn't know, hadn't heard of before, but they tell us that they're there at different times, and just finding that connection with people's history, because you don't really get those kind of projects very often where where you're a part of it, and you're part of a group of people, you're kind of in the family, and then you get to the privilege really of being able to help retell their stories. There aren't
Yeah.
many opportunities like that.
No, and that was definitely an aspect of it. Is I've always been a modern historian. I've always focused on pretty much the 20th century, and then like how image, like moving pictures and just photography and art, it's all tied into that, and just seeing like how many things go unknown by like almost everybody, and you have to be part of this, and it just doesn't ever seem necessary now because of how easy it is to just record and put something up. And it takes a little bit more work to make even a 25-minute documentary, but being able to just like record people's stories and interviews, and they don't have to be world-changing events, but these are people who had experiences that are worth sharing. And I think to create a more inclusive world, you need to have every type of experience out there, because there's someone else who's had that experience.
Yeah.
And if maybe they're in an area where they're the only punk, and they can see that no, there's all sorts of places, and it doesn't have to be LA or New York or these like meccas that seem kind of impossible to get to. No, you can go just about anywhere and find these types of people, and they're all good people.
Yeah, and just being able to tell the stories of those folks too. I remember talking to his name's escaped me, but anyway, I talked to somebody and I remember him telling me the same story about Jeff from Earl's Killer Squirrel, and he was telling me at one point, when we were initially working on a project that turned into this long time ago, it said that you got to record these stories because this is the most important part of my life, and I want this this needs to be recorded. And when he told me that, it was just amazing to think about how important this was for so many people's lives, and you being able to do this, you being able to capture these moments and stories, like Chris and Colton digging through that box. I would love to see that box.
Yeah. Yeah. They had so many materials, and that was part of it. So maybe 3 hours, their interview may have been 3 hours, but half of it was going through this box of old show flyers that they had. And it was incredible to see like how much they held on to. And especially with a scene like a punk scene, people are moving all the time, things are getting boxed up, and it's so easy for and it's all just cheap paper, because that's what everyone had to work with. And to see like some of this stuff survive, it's like, oh, I mean, it actually takes work to make sure those like stay in a box and don't get pulled out all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't really think about this when it comes to flyers or zines, but they weren't really meant to be, to last forever. They were meant to go on a telephone pole or just to sit on, a table that possibly will have beer stained on it, poured on it by accident.
Yeah, but I guess I'm sentimental, and I think it's the history training where I'm like, but we should keep everything.
I know, I do too. Otherwise we wouldn't be in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. You would be in an empty room right now.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I learned with this project was that we need to, I wish punks would put years on flyers.
Yes, I had that problem when I was going through, and I was like, I have no idea what any year is, and like we could probably get some people together and figure it out. But yeah, there was not a single year on a single flyer that I ever saw, which makes sense. Like you said, it was very short notice. It was very short term. Like, of course, it's this March 19th. It's like, what other March 19th could it possibly be?
You
We're
idiot.
not planning shows a year out. Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about the donation that you're going to help us with.
Sure. So I have all of the interviews still, and pretty much all the materials I have. So I'm more of a digital hoarder than anything. Like, I've got every raw piece of footage that I filmed and all of that. So I need to organize it. But as I said, it's going to be about 24 actual interviews, like full interviews, with 30 something people I tried my hardest to get as diverse of a group as possible. And a lot of it is, one of the things I aimed for was definitely getting some of the so-called first generation, the McGuigan speakeasy people, all the way up to, Dicks from Mars and Sour, who were still in high school and doing music at the time. So it's a fairly wide range from there. And then, like I said, it's about, I want to say about 35 hours total worth of interviews. And then it's just a ton of digitizations of zines and flyers, and some stuff you probably already have copies of, but it's nice to have a digital form that you could put up somewhere. And it's, again, stuff I've collected. So I kept wondering if I was going to do more with it. And at this point, it doesn't seem like it. I'm not sure what I'm working on next, but we'll see. And but so I figured, it'd be a great thing for you guys to have and to do with what you will. And I think more people will see it there than at Voices.
Well, I think, and that's the thing that we like to say about what we're doing is that, we're one of the reasons why you saved all those flyers. Because, I assume that most of us, we save the flyers that they're sitting in some folder somewhere, and just collecting dust at best, or like I found over, from 309 that we actually had rats that were eating up a lot of the zines that we had. So you can see the folders where I thought I meticulously saved them, and you could see this trail of literal rat bitings, up on there, bitings and droppings.
Yeah.
So it depends on the punk house you live in, how long that stuff
it does.
but
and especially with the humidity of Florida, like you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're learning a lot of the stuff as it goes right now. We have some great folks that are working with us in the archives, and trying to, build up our board, and, with archivists, in mind, and thinking about how are we going to save this history, and how are people going to use it in the future too, which is probably one of our biggest and most important parts of what we're doing. So your donation really warmed all of our hearts. I can't tell you how excited
I'm glad
we were when we saw this. And I'm going to talk about from me, but just from everybody else. You're like, really, he's going to donate this to us? And Sean had jumped in there. He's like, oh my God, you guys don't understand how big a deal this is.
Well, I mean, that makes me feel better. I mean, I would have done it anyway if you guys are like, we'll take it if you have. But no, that's very nice to hear. And I'm happy to share the materials. Like I said, I kept wanting to know if I was going to do more with it. And I had some ideas, but I've got some focus issues when it comes to projects, and when I don't have the end of a semester deadline looming, it's really hard to give myself, like right now I'm just working on like 1 to 5 minute short films that have as little narrative as possible, because it's just the easiest thing to handle, especially when being stuck inside all the time.
Yeah, well, those are nice too. I got into watching.
Yeah, it's been a nice break, but I've actually just started recently interviewing a couple people, just people I've met since being in Massachusetts, and there's no theme or topic yet, but it just is one of those things, like actually us going back and forth, getting ready for this and doing everything. It's got me thinking, it's like, I need to go back to basics, and I really enjoy talking to people, and I like to think that I'm a pretty decent interviewer. So finding people around here that I think that are cool and interesting and worth interviewing, and then just I'm going to have those interviews and see what comes of it. Maybe another documentary, maybe another history project, maybe something of both, but something always on the horizon.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be able to have that with you, have that thought.
Yeah.
So tell me this. So this would be our last question, unless you have any others you want to add to this. So after all the hours of interviews you did on this project, all the time, and
I think I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Oh, I think I lost you. I missed the first part of that.
Okay, there you go. So after months and months of working on this project, and after trying to get all the stuff together in this time period, in all the hours and hours of film that you've collected, what was the one thing that you learned? If you say probably the most important thing that you learned about Pensacola Punk, but then also about yourself in this process, what were the biggest things that you learned?
One of the things I learned was how much I missed the scene. By the time I had started this project, I was like 5 years deep in undergrad and the first year of my grad program. And so when school and working full time, like I was barely going to shows. I kind of stopped going out, other than just, meeting a couple friends here or there. And talking to all these people made me realize how much I missed it, how much it felt like, I need this camaraderie of people, like-minded people. I like going to shows, even if I don't like the bands. It reminded me how much I enjoy a good punk scene. And so after talking to people, I definitely became more focused on going to shows and taking the ideals to the next level, as far as like inclusiveness, fighting for, fighting against injustice and things like that. And it was really heartening to see again, I keep going back to them because they made an impression, but like the guys from Dick from Mars, and like how aware they were that like they said something to me that was, we live in this kind of we live further on the west side. We know we live here because it's cheap and we're punks and all of that, but we're just like the foot in the door for gentrification, because other people will go start buying the houses because they see white kids there, and then that brings more people, and then the downtown area like spreads out further. And so just seeing them and how aware they were of like how Pensacola works, like even at like 30, I'm still baffled by some of the things Pensacola does, but they seem to like have it figured out pretty young, and just to be jealous of that knowledge at that age, was pretty heartening. And then seeing like, okay, so I think we're going to be okay if that's the youth that we can look up to.
But one of them, I'm not sure if it's the one who said that, but Grover, he's in grad school now at UWF, and he's actually my TA.
He's been doing some good work.
Yeah, he's doing really great stuff. In fact, there's a show going on right now as we speak, but luckily they record it so we can check it out. But yeah, doing amazing stuff. But he's my TA in one of my classes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, it's nice to be able to do just go over there and
communicate.
Yeah, he's a great person. So what about yourself though? What did you learn about yourself?
Well, part of it was the, how much I really enjoy a scene like that. But then it really cemented that, okay, making movies is what I want to do. It was one of those things that grew up as a kid. Like, I really love the ideas of making movies. Like, what would I do differently with, seeing big blockbuster movies if I had control, just the fantasy of it. But it was never something that seemed attainable. I don't know why. Like, there was no real hurdles. It seemed too big of a dream. But then just having these certain, like I said earlier, the head of the department leaving, so everyone was kind of scrambling. So there was a lot more leeway than there would have been otherwise. There was meeting a guy who was teaching documentary making specifically for historians. Like, I met him 2 months before it happened, and I scraped the money together to be able to go, and it was in Georgia. So like I had to like figure out how to make it work with school and everything, but it like worked out great. And then seeing the product and seeing like how many people enjoyed it, and as stressed out as I was and unsure about how good it was, like I really didn't know how it was going to be taken. I didn't think people were going to hate it, but I really didn't know what the criticisms were going to be. But as a whole, I mean, most people liked it. There was definitely some criticisms, but it was nothing that, honestly, most of the criticisms were nothing that I didn't already know. Going into it, I definitely said, like, I can't interview everyone as much as I would love to. I don't have the resources or the time. It's like going to be a 30-minute documentary. I can't mention every single band. So like, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, they didn't even mention blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I couldn't bring up everyone. But just the amount of joy I got out of just making a movie and having it be successful was pretty great.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not that I can think of.
No.
I'm really looking forward to going to shows again.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
Oh.
At least, live shows, like the live streams are okay, but there's nothing like staying up too late to watch a band who started 2 hours late. So I mean,
I just heard a story on NPR earlier today, and it was talking about this woman who was really looking forward to going to a house and had a dirty floor in it, because everything's sanitized these days. I want to go to that. It'll be here soon enough. All right, the Roaring 20s will kick off soon, I'm sure.
But no, I appreciate you doing this interview. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I really enjoy seeing all the updates and seeing how successful the fundraising went.
Yeah.
No, I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, we really, really appreciate it. We appreciate all the support that you've given us over the years, and this donation too is incredible. So it's going to be something that lots and lots of people could use after this. Once we get all this stuff digitized, but once we get it out there to where people can access this, and this is going to be, it's going to be incredible. I think a lot of people are just going to be so teary-eyed, when they come across.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about, this is about the anniversary of Kent's passing too, and even to think about going through those interviews, looking through those and the ones that you posted on YouTube already.
Yeah.
So a lot of those interviews now, if you don't know, are on YouTube as we speak. But then there's a lot of stuff out there that that'll be in these archives. So so you want to celebrate Kent, then take a look at Ian's interviews that he did.
Yeah, it was definitely on the top of one of my favorite interviews. I mean, Kent's just such an interesting guy. Like, there were stories I think I had heard before, or I may have even heard like secondhand, but hearing them directly from him, and was just, incredible. Like, I was trying not to put my voice on the recording so much, but I'm like, there was a second camera on me, you would have seen me behind the camera just trying to hold in, like, laughing and like just a big smile, because he's a really good storyteller, and it was just amazing to hear some of this stuff. And if you go back, or if you watch the interview, there's a painting on his left of the screen. It's the Quantum Jesus painting.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about it after the interview, and then he gifted it to me, like, one of the last times I saw him, like, before I left. And I think I was swinging by to get something or to do something, but he, like, just gave it to me. I was like, that's fantastic. And I've still got it in my library right now, just hanging out on top of a bookcase. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a nice way to end the interview. Well,
Yeah.
Ian, really appreciate you. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, totally. And all right. So thank you so much. And thanks a lot for all of the things you've done for us.
Yeah, give my best to everyone else there.
Okay, I will. Absolutely. All right. Thank you.